And here, my friends, we have our first interviewee. Meet Naka. He has a YouTube channel with almost 1 million subscribers. I noticed that the girls we walked past who were dressed like schoolgirls would cover their faces when we walked by. But Naka just told me something very interesting. Why do you think those girls cover their faces?
Yes, I know that obviously work life here is extremely demanding. Well, there's even a word to define suicide caused by overwork.
No.
What you see most about women are actually their legs. There are Japanese women whose legs are as thin as arms. It's a way of analyzing the female body, isn't it?
Since you also mentioned they have 3 alphabets.
Kanji, hiragana, and katakana together have over 10,000 characters.
The topic of family, here we met a Japanese person and he told us even though he lived 5 minutes away from his parents' house, he only saw them once every 3 or 4 months.
Is there gender equality in Japan?
Hello, hello?
How are you?
Those crazy travelers?
Those crazy people in Japan.
Today we're gonna make a very special video, one of those we love to make in every country we visit. And it's none other than finding out what life is like here in Japan.
We've noted several curiosities not found in any YouTube video since we've watched many. And they're fascinating, so stay tuned and watch this video.
And the most interesting thing is that we're going to have special guests to answer some questions for us, people who have been living here in Japan for a long time. So anyway, for those who still don't know us, I'm Emmanuel Vieira.
I'm Valerie Sa.
And together we are
2 crazy travelers.
traveling. And here, my crazy friends, we have our first interviewee. Meet Naka. I'm sure many in our community have already seen him. He has a YouTube channel with almost 1 million subscribers where he shares a lot of information about Japanese culture. It's called Japatonic, so you can go follow him as soon as this video ends. Naka, tell me something. First of all, how would you describe life in Japan in a few words?
Calm, patience. I think that's the first word that comes to my mind to describe life in this country.
And the truth is that it's the complete opposite of what you might imagine. Because if you look up photos of Japan, well, specifically in Tokyo, the first thing that comes up is the Shibuya crossing. Millions of people and everything, but you say it's calm and peaceful.
It's basically that nobody actually lives at the Shibuya crossing.
Exactly.
I mean, people always live in a quieter neighborhood. Life in general is a peaceful life. Yes, it's a city. Tokyo, for instance, is very hectic. We're not going to ignore that it's a lifestyle. Life in Tokyo is stressful and fast-paced. But in general terms, above all, it's a calm life. It's peaceful. That's what it is.
Naka, tell us a little about your roots. How did you come to Japan? How long have you been living here?
I was born in Argentina, Buenos Aires. My parents are from Okinawa, an island in the south of Japan. I lived in Argentina until I was 20 and have spent the past 17 years in Japan as I'm now 37.
Well, you're perfect to talk about what life is like in Japan. You already have 17 years of experience, plus, well, your Japanese parents. Naka, tell me a little, what is politics like here in Japan?
Politics, I can't say since no one is interested.
Really?
Nobody else is interested, just like me.
Okay. I mean, people don't care about who's in the government, how they vote, or how often elections are held?
Every 4 years. But basically, no one really expects someone at the top to change your lifestyle, your way of living. And also that's something interesting, that nobody is interested because nobody feels like anyone is going to make a real change.
Exactly.
I mean, the person who goes out to work in the morning knows that's not going to change. Hi, how are you? Why? When people walk...
Yes. Well, actually, we met him last night and several people were already coming up to him to ask for photos. So he is a legend here among Spanish speakers in Japan. So, well, politics basically doesn't interfere in people's daily lives.
The reality is that no matter who ends up being the prime minister, there aren't any radical changes.
Of course.
And no, people's lifestyle doesn't change. What changes is, I don't know, the cost of taxes. That's the only thing that can change people's lives a little bit.
Naka, before I ask more about life in Japan, where are we now?
We're in Akihabara, the neighborhood that's known for anime and video game culture.
Okay, well, let's explore the area a little bit and then we'll keep asking you about the culture in Japan. Look at all these stores with anime vending machines. For example, these are from Harry Potter, this is from E.T., and there are endless ones like this all over this neighborhood. You put the coin in there, it's 300 yen, which is about $2 or 2.1. And over here, there are some for 500 yen. You give it a little spin, and well, now you have your collectible anime, your little toy. This is one of all the stores you can find in this neighborhood. One thing surprised me just now watching the previous video. I noticed that the girls we walked past who were dressed like schoolgirls would cover their faces when we passed by. And well, maybe they just didn't want to be in the video, that's all. Naka just told me something interesting. Why do you think those girls cover their faces?
The thing is, those girls work at maid cafes. And maid cafes are places where part of the business is that the girls, they serve you at the cafe. And there you can take a picture with them. And it's not even a photo with your phone, it's an instant Polaroid photo. I mean, a unique photo.
Okay.
Then you draw on it with markers and all that, and you take it as a souvenir. I mean, the photo, taking a picture of the girls is part of the business. And they also sell, for example, postcards of them with their faces, with their photos, their image is part of the business.
Oh, that's why they were covering themselves there.
So they wouldn't give away their image for free.
Okay, well, look, speaking of this business of coffee and everything, let's talk a little about working in Japan. What are the salaries like? What's the minimum wage? What's the average salary in Japan? And what is the work culture like? Because I had read that here, people practically work until they die. I mean, there are a lot of elderly people that you see working.
Well, let's see. First, the minimum wage for a person who works 40 hours a week is about 200,000 yen, which is around $1,200, $1,300.
Okay?
That's enough to live independently?
Yes.
To rent a 20 square meter apartment, something really small, which is very common here.
Exactly.
The average salary would already be 300,000 yen.
That's about $2,000 more or less.
Around $2,000. And regarding work hours, you don't work as many hours as people think. The thing is, in the news, stories about people in Japan dying from overwork have gone viral many times.
Exactly.
There are isolated cases, but let's see.
It's not the majority.
Something that exists all over the world, but in Japan, they really want to highlight it a lot. The truth is, if you just Google which countries have the most working hours, and the first place is Mexico.
Exactly. Yes, I mean, Japan isn't even close to being there.
What Japan has is work intensity. The intensity of those hours, they are very stressful hours. For example, a lot of people ask me, why are people always on their phones when they're on the train? Because when that person gets to work, they won't be able to touch their phone all day.
Are jobs here really that intense?
It's just that the rules are very strict.
Exactly.
And you can't be working, for example, even if you work in a clothing store, you can't be there. There are no customers. And you can't just be standing around like that. It's not well regarded.
Of course.
And even more so, if you imagine a formal job or office work, I mean, you're not supposed to touch your phone unless it's your break time.
The topic of work and salaries is very interesting, especially since you say someone can easily become independent on minimum wage.
Without giving themselves many luxuries.
No.
But you can become independent, which is huge.
Of course. Well, I think that in our countries, I mean in Latin American countries, it's hard for someone to become independent just with a minimum wage.
Of course.
It's easy for couples living together, but harder for one person.
Tokyo, for example, is a city with a very high population of people who live alone.
Well, and speaking of living alone, let's talk about family here. We met a Japanese man in Osaka named Yusuke. Greetings to you if you're watching this video. And he told us that even though he lived 5 minutes away from his parents' house, he only saw them once every 3 or 4 months.
Yes, it's very common. The thing is, it's a bit of a broad topic. It's something that really needs to be analyzed
Exactly.
But basically, it's a big problem with Japan's low birth rate, for example, starting right from the root.
Exactly.
It's that many people want to get married and have children for social status. It's a social commitment.
Wow.
And since it's a social commitment, people have children not out of love for the family.
Exactly.
There are people who do, obviously, but many just want to set a social example.
Exactly.
Get married, start a family, and have a child. The father will be working and giving all the money he can so that the child doesn't lack anything. But there will be something missing.
Love.
Exactly.
Wow.
The mother does the same. Takes him to school, provides for him, and ensures he eats. But something is missing. She needs to give a bit more. Love.
Wow.
It's very common when they're babies or little, but as they get older, for example, families don't greet each other with a kiss. Japanese people generally don't greet with kisses. There's already a culture of distance.
Of course, wow.
The mother gives her children many kisses until they are 2 or 3 years old.
Exactly.
After that, it's not very common. Couples don't kiss each other. It's really a cold culture.
Okay.
Japanese people have a different kind of warmth, which is a whole different topic altogether.
Exactly.
There is a Japanese warmth, but the real warmth, the one you feel, the feeling of love that we Latin Americans feel, is not the same in Japan.
Because I have to admit that I really feel like they've treated me very well and they've been kind. Since Okinawa, we stayed at an Airbnb in Okinawa, and one day the owner knocked on our door to invite us to breakfast. He didn't let us pay, and he was 80 years old. So I feel that maybe with tourists and the warmth or the way Japanese people treat you is excellent. But I didn't know there was that family background where maybe among themselves they don't have as much affection as we Latin Americans usually do.
Look, actually a very similar example, an acquaintance joined a kind of cultural exchange program.
Okay.
He's staying with a Japanese host family where a couple lives with their son who's about 20 or 25 years old.
Uh-huh.
And the thing is, even though they live together with the son, they don't communicate with him. On the other hand, this one, who's a tourist exactly, talks every day with this elderly couple.
Exactly.
He gets along well and says they're kind, good people who chat, but not with the son.
Wow.
And the son, he's not interested in his parents, and the parents, it's very common for them to just resign themselves, and deep down they want to talk to their son because they love him, but they don't know how to reach out.
Of course.
And sometimes it's different for the son. He's like a rebellious 15-year-old who just wants to be with friends and avoids discussing problems with his parents.
Exactly.
It's very similar.
Wow, that's some really interesting information, isn't it? I'm amazed because honestly, every time I visit a new country and learn about its culture, it really opens my mind and helps me understand, but above all, respect. Unlike, for example, in India, the dream of Indian people is for everyone to live in the same house. In India, a house can have 20, 30, or even 40 people living together. And here what they want is all family, I mean, literally in one room, the son lives, let's say the owners of the house live at the entrance of the house. I mean, they don't even have a room anymore. Instead, they put a mattress near the door because it's like they're protecting the house. That's wild. We have a video about Indian culture that's really interesting. Each room in the house is for a son who brings his wife and kids, the owner's grandchildren. They all live in one room, and as the family grows, they add more rooms instead of buying new houses. Imagine 20 or 30 people living in one house.
For me, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
Privacy doesn't exist.
It's crazy. But for them, that's their dream, how beautiful and diverse the world is. Let's keep exploring, and now we'll show you a little more about what life is like here in Japan. Look, we're gonna buy a little game. Woohoo! Look, at first glance, it looks like a mini Game Boy, but let's see what it is. How cute. It literally looks like a mini Game Boy.
And it works.
Let's see. Oh, how fun. Look, this one is like shooting. How fun. Look, a super interesting fact about tax-free here in Japan. Just by showing your passport, they give you the tax-free. You don't need to claim the money at the airport or fill out any forms. Whatever you buy in Japan, as long as it's applicable, obviously not food, but goods that qualify for tax-free, you just show your passport and they take off 10%, which is also the tax rate here in Japan.
$35.
It's great that you take it, it's cool.
It's a work thing, but oh well.
Of course, yes. One of the most interesting facts, especially for us travelers, is the Japanese passport. It's one of the most powerful in the world. You can enter more than 190 countries without a visa. And according to the United Nations, there are only 196. So only a few are the ones that require a visa. Naka, can you get a Japanese passport by being born in Japan? Or do your parents have to be Japanese?
No, being born in Japan doesn't give you the passport or the nationality. Otherwise, people would come to Japan just to give birth, making it too easy.
Exactly.
And Japan is a country that's very careful about things like granting nationality and that sort of thing. Therefore, you have to have both parents or at least one parent who is Japanese.
Okay.
If it's your father, you get your father's last name as usual. And if your mother is Japanese and your father is a foreigner, the most common thing is that you get your mother's last name. To use a Japanese surname on the Japanese passport,
Wow.
there is a way for a foreigner to obtain citizenship and therefore a Japanese passport. But it's quite complicated. There are many requirements. But as a foreigner, if you manage to get a Japanese passport, they make you choose a Japanese first and last name.
No.
I mean, in a Japanese passport, there absolutely has to be a Japanese name. At least the last name has to be Japanese.
Look, when we were walking down the street where the girls dressed as maids were, did you see again how they covered their faces? And well, it's precisely so that you'll buy their services, they'll take you to the cafe, and you end up paying for the photo. Let's talk now about beauty standards. I think that's one of the things that caught my attention the most while researching about Japan. Because just like in Latin America, women like to get cosmetic surgeries on their breasts or buttocks. Here I see that they get eye surgery to make their eyes look bigger.
That's true.
Why is that?
The thing is, Japan's beauty standards aren't really based on hips or like much on butts or breasts.
Exactly.
But rather, you see, what you notice most about women are actually their legs.
The legs?
The legs, or maybe even the arms.
Okay.
Thin arms and legs. If you see a girl and cover everything but only see her legs, you can pretty much tell what her body is like.
Exactly.
I mean, you already know if she has, let's say, the right amount of flesh because there are Japanese girls whose legs are as thin as their arms.
Okay.
It's not frowned upon, but some people like it while others don't. The ones with just enough meat. It's like the rest will be fine.
Okay.
It's a way to analyze the female body, right?
Okay.
Then, on the other hand, something very common is very white, very pale skin because it shows more delicacy.
I mean, they can't get a tan at the beach.
Women here never want to get a tan. I mean, there are some very specific girls who specifically like to get a tan, but most of them are very careful about the sun, They use a lot of sunscreen and umbrellas. You must have noticed how often they use umbrellas.
Not even rain stops the sun.
Or wearing long sleeves in summer to protect their skin from sunburn.
Wow.
Japanese women take great care of their appearance.
And I imagine that the thing about having wide open eyes, I mean big eyes, is also kind of a standard of...
He likes having big eyes.
Okay, that's why they look for surgery to get double eyelids and also to make their eyes a bit bigger so they don't look so narrow.
Look, there's a beauty standard that's considered the highest among Japanese people without being a foreigner, which is the hafu, meaning half, a mix of Japanese and foreigner.
Okay,
There are many cases of people who are mixed.
exactly.
And they get the best from each gene and have Japanese features, but with bigger eyes.
Okay.
Sometimes, if you're lucky, their eyes are lighter. And then they can apply to be models, work on television. There are a lot of people on television who are just like that Hafu, and well, they're like,
The top of beauty in Japan. How interesting. The differences in taste around the world, which are so diverse, and what someone might say, no, this woman is too skinny. But here, those are the ones they love the most. In other words, the standards that are most desired. One of the topics that also really catches my attention about Japan is the language. I've read that it's one of the most complicated in the world. And talking with Yusuke, the other Japanese guy, he told me that they have 3 alphabets. Or 3
alphabets.
3 alphabets, and he told me that there was one of the alphabets that could have more than 10,000 combinations. I don't know if of words or syllables. Could you explain that a bit more to me?
yes, first there are 2 basic alphabets called katakana and hiragana. Each one has, I don't know, 40 or 50 letters each. They're easy to learn. In quotes, they're easy.
Exactly.
And then there's kanji, which are ideograms. They're complex characters. And the basic level in school is from 1,000 to 2,000 characters. And the advanced level is about 3,000 to 4,000.
What?
So, to read the newspaper, if you didn't go to school and didn't study enough, you can't read the newspaper. For example, since I wasn't raised in Japan and didn't go to school, reading the newspaper is something completely impossible for me.
Okay.
Completely impossible.
The newspaper here uses kanji.
Of course, yes. I mean, Japanese in general combines kanji with katakana and hiragana, so it's not all kanji.
Okay.
Chinese, for example, for Japanese, is 100% kanji because hiragana and katakana don't exist. I mean, there are no basic simplified letters.
Of course. Wow, that's complicated. I think that's also why Japanese people don't speak English very well. Or at least that's what I've noticed in these 15 days I've been in Japan. And correct me if I'm wrong.
No, honestly, that's true. They don't speak much English. Only recently, I think in about 10 years, we'll start to see young adults who can speak fluent English. I mean, usually the Japanese people who speak good English are those who took advanced English classes at university or went on exchange to other countries. But the average person doesn't.
Yeah, it's true that it's super complicated. I don't know what we would do without Google Translator. But anyway, let's get out of this shade and we'll keep talking a bit more about life in Japan in a moment. Just now we were on the subway, it was pretty crowded, and a lady came in and I stood up to give her my seat, but she didn't want to sit down. Is it something cultural here that people don't give up their seats, or did she just not want the seat? Or was it just an unusual case?
Of course, it's not very common to give up your seat, and it's also not very common to accept it. Because look, when it's someone who really needs it, like a person with a disability, someone on crutches with a cast on their leg, or an elderly lady with a cane, those people will accept it because they really need the seat. But if they really don't need the seat, they don't feel entitled to bother the person who already used it, who got their spot.
Of course.
Because sitting down is already resting, and it's like you're taking away other people's right to rest just because of your condition. And there are older people who can't travel standing up, and so they actually feel embarrassed to receive a seat from others. Because not everyone, but some people can even get offended because they might take it as, what's wrong with me?
Exactly.
Are you treating me like I'm disabled?
Wow!
Some people might see it that way. It's a minority, but those cases exist too.
Of course. So, if you come to Japan and you don't see someone with a severe disability or someone who really, really needs it, just don't give up your seat because they might even take it the wrong way. And finally, I want to finish by talking a little about Japanese food, especially the meat, which I know is some of the best in the world, if not the best. Tell me a little about the difference, or where does it come from? Where does Wagyu beef come from? Or the difference. Actually, I've read on the internet that the best in the world is Kobe beef, but it's like Kobe Wagyu. So I don't know if you can explain to me a little bit about the difference between the two, or what each one is.
Of course, Kobe beef is a type of Japanese beef, a very specific one that was a brand, in quotes, a pioneer in discovering that the Japanese black short-horned cow had a very special kind of meat with a different flavor. And Kobe, which is the name of a city, found the process to improve and perfect the meat from that cow even more.
Okay.
Now, Kobe beef is a type of Wagyu. Wagyu means Japanese beef.
Okay, so all the beef produced here in Japan is Wagyu?
It's Wagyu. Even if it's low quality, it's still Wagyu.
Exactly.
Now, there is Wagyu beef that is very good, very high quality. It can even be better than Kobe beef, but from a tourist point of view, people want to try Kobe.
Okay.
And therefore, you might end up paying more for Kobe beef that may not be as good as another type of Wagyu, which is cheaper but actually better.
Wow.
Well, with Kobe, you really pay a lot for the name because it's world famous. In order to sell Kobe beef, whether raw or prepared in a restaurant, you have to have the plaque, and it's a golden plaque, which is
Like a license?
a license to sell Kobe.
Wow.
And there are other Wagyu meats that you don't need that plate to sell or serve, but they can be much better and cheaper.
What is the treatment if you know it? Or what is the characteristic that makes this meat, Wagyu or Kobe, so marbled, with the fat mixed into the protein, unlike, for example, Argentinian meat, which always has the piece of fat on top or on the side?
I mean, on one hand, it's semi-natural. That's why when they first tried Kobe Wagyu, they realized and said this meat is different.
Okay.
And then they perfected it, the method. How? How did they perfect the method? That's a secret of each city that has the breeding farms, but many say it's because they give them massages.
Okay.
Another one is that they put them in machines that make them shake, so the fat goes getting more in between the muscles. Others use giant brushes so they can groom themselves. Other methods exist unrelated to that. For example, Matsusaka is known for its delicious Wagyu.
Okay.
And there, they give the cow a small bottle of beer every day.
Wow. I mean, that cow is drunk?
I mean, there are tons of methods, and everyone has their own method.
It's amazing, really, everything we've learned in just a short time walking the streets of Japan. I want to invite everyone watching this video to go to this guy's channel. As I said at the beginning, he's almost about to reach 1 million subscribers. Also, what we've shown you here is just a little taste of everything you'll be able to find about Japanese culture, coming to Japan, and itineraries. If you want to go further, you can hire him since he also offers guided tours.
I studied tourism.
For small groups here in Japan. So look, you can dive much deeper into your curiosity about Japan by checking out this guy's profile. Thank you, my brother, for this interview. I hope we keep enjoying ourselves after we turn off the camera. And you guys watching out there, don't forget to subscribe and comment what you think about life in Japan.
Greetings to you, your family, your pet, and your annoying neighbor.
We came to eat at a sushi restaurant called Kin.
Kinka.
Where are we?
We're currently in the Roppongi area, which is one of the most prestigious neighborhoods in Tokyo. It has a very interesting name because Roppongi in Japanese means the 6 trees. Because in ancient times, in this area, there was a palace on whose grounds there were 6 huge trees.
Okay.
That's good. They no longer exist, but if you visit the area where the palace was, you can still see the remains from when the trees were cut down. That's also how the city got its name.
How interesting. Well, look, let me introduce you to Gabriel, a Venezuelan who lives here in Japan, and we have so many questions to ask you because you're Venezuelan. And the first thing you think about when you come to live in a country with completely different customs is, how was that culture shock? Was there or not? Was it easy to live?
Yes, well, me. Maybe I'm not the best example because throughout my life I've moved a lot. I've lived in several countries, so let's say that cultural flexibility muscle has developed a bit. However, I would say that most of my life experience was always in the West, Venezuela, obviously in several European countries, and coming to Japan, well, I never really experienced an extreme culture shock. However, it is the country with the most noticeable differences compared to the other countries I have lived in. I would say that the overwhelming number of people is one of the things that impacted me the most, especially on public transportation. Simply put, when you're walking down the street, there will always be a lot of people, and those are things that might not be for everyone. It impacted me, but not necessarily in a bad way. I actually like this atmosphere of an active city, the typical city that never sleeps and all that. And it has its own particular charm, doesn't it? Aside from that, regarding the food, quality of life, and similar aspects, I couldn't say that I've had any negative experiences. The truth is, I love Tokyo, I love Japan. Life here is pretty special, and I really like it a lot.
They welcomed you in a good way.
In a very good way, honestly. Obviously, you do hear, and I had also heard, of course, about xenophobia in Japan, since it's an island. First of all, historically, having closed borders for more than 200 years and all that. And even today, it's still a pretty uniform society. The vast majority of people are Japanese, then come other Asians, and below that are Westerners. So you always hear stories about discrimination, about xenophobia. However, personally, I have nothing negative to say about it. I haven't had any negative experiences. On the contrary, I've always been received in an extremely warm way or even touching. About how, let's say, how open they are, how well they've received me here in general, and that's it. It's one of those things that makes me feel more at home.
Because we do hear that they're kind of closed off with their groups about mixing and including foreigners, especially.
On one hand, yes, they might be a bit closed off, of course, because, for example, if they see me, for example, and they don't know if I'm a tourist or if I live here or if I speak Japanese or if I don't speak Japanese, then obviously there's a bit of reservation. Of course, but when they see that you're part of society or that you're at least making an effort to adapt and be part of the society, the culture and life here, they open up a lot more. And yes, they really are quite warm people, very, very humble as well. And one of the things, well, it's something I heard before in the past. Someone who was talking about Japan said, well, talking about Tokyo in particular, and said that Tokyo is like a big city that behaves like a small town. It's a small town where everyone knows each other, everyone treats each other well, the neighbors always talk to each other, they're always looking out for one another. I had apples and, well, I bring you a couple of apples, and that's something that's very welcome here. Sometimes it's happened to me that a lady on the train sees me and gives me a cookie.
Oh.
Or the neighbors, even at home, look, we bought oranges, but we bought too many, so here, take some oranges.
Wow.
And it's those gestures that really move me. Of course, since I'll never be Japanese, anyone who sees me will obviously say this guy isn't Japanese. But these are things that make me feel a little more integrated into life here.
Because you also speak Japanese, and that's an amazing bridge for you to be able to connect.
Of course, that goes, I would say that applies to any country.
Of course, no doubt.
If you go to the country where you're going to live and build your career or whatever it is, it's essential to learn the language, of course. How
is it to learn the language?
How is it still?
Okay, sure, sure.
My Japanese is far from perfect, but well, just to tell a bit of the story. As I mentioned to you just now, I've lived in several countries, and in each of those countries, I've had to learn the language. And to this day, I speak 5 languages, but the problem is that all of those are Western and mainly European languages. So even though they have different roots, if you talk about, for example, Italian in Germany, they have different roots. Yes, that's true. But the mentality kind of unifies them, this European worldview that unifies them in a certain way. Japanese is different. It's a challenge on another level, a completely different world.
Because you also told me that they have 3 alphabets?
Yes, exactly. So they have the 3 main alphabets, kanji, hiragana, and katakana. Kanji is basically the alphabet that came here from China. When the Chinese came to invade or through colonizing or conquering Japan, etc., obviously they brought their culture, the alphabet, among other things. And kanji, well, to make a long story a little shorter, there were several waves of invasions by the Chinese from different dynasties, and each of those dynasties pronounced their alphabet in different ways. So that means when all those dynasties came here with their alphabets, Japan ended up with a character that has 3, 4, or even 5 different pronunciations, depending on the context and the surrounding characters. Depending on what you're trying to say, you pronounce the same character one way or another. And that's what happens with kanji. Kanji is also the most extensive, with over 10,000 characters, but not all of them are used.
How long did it take you, at least, to have a fluent conversation?
A year?
No, but well, you know that Gabriel has special talents?
No, but it takes a year just to say more than "this is a pencil."
The food keeps coming. How delicious.
After a year, you start to feel a bit more comfortable having a pretty basic conversation with someone, right? And I'm always very happy to see that you're trying to communicate, right?
Of course.
So they help you, etc. But anyway, going back to the alphabets, actually those 10,000 aren't used, and very few Japanese people know all of them, right? And I would say that in general, they know about 3,000, which is quite a lot. Yes, especially for us who know 26 letters, but that's kanji. At this point, I would say I know 200, 300 kanji characters, right? And then there's hiragana and katakana, and each of those has 46 characters, right? And those are native to Japan. The alphabets that were created here, well, throughout history, and well, hiragana is basically the alphabet that was used daily before kanji arrived. And katakana is used exclusively to write words that come from other languages, like, for example, to write your name or my name, or words like cheese, words that, because in Japanese, cheese is also said as cheese, because it comes from...
It's not that there's a B and an A, but it's more about pronunciation.
So, well, hiragana and katakana are syllabaries, meaning that each letter is a syllable. So you have ki, ku, keiko, mami, mu, nemo, etc. That's another thing. And it's not a e o u like we know it, it's a e u e o. It's in a different order, right? But kanji, as we were talking about earlier, are also not letters themselves, but what are known as ideograms or logograms, which are basically images. For example, for the word tree, which is pronounced ki, and the kanji basically evolves from what would have previously been a drawing of a tree, right? Then if you want, I can show it to you, right? And that's basically how it is with everything. The mountain, for example, the kanji for mountain, which is yama, also comes from what would have previously been a drawing of a mountain, right?
Okay.
So basically, that's how the language is built. They're images that, when you put them together, give you an overall idea of the context of what we're talking about.
And speaking more about education, what is education like in Japan?
Extreme, isn't it? Yes, and because here, first of all, there's a culture of service. Everything is... Here they are extremely attentive.
to everything, even the smallest detail, correct? For example, education like school. I would say that it's from school where this is taught. How would you say it?
Service at school.
Yes, exactly. As we talked about earlier, and that's something that's also known, well, maybe some of those who are watching also know this, right? In schools, there is usually no service staff. There isn't, for example, a cleaning lady or a gardener. These kinds of things don't exist, actually. I mean, just like we have an hour of math, an hour of Spanish, an hour of geography in schools, here they also have a cleaning hour, basically, which is basically where they teach children to take care of their things, to take care of their environment. And what they do is literally clean the school. So they clean the classroom, clean the bathrooms, clean the hallways, clean everything, right? Each child has their own little bag
Their cleaning kit.
with all their cleaning items, gloves, brushes, sponges, soaps, cleaning products, everything. And well, everyone each day has their section of the classroom they have to clean, their section of the bathroom they have to clean, their section of the kitchens they have to clean. And just like that, every day there's also a different group of kids assigned to serve lunch to everyone else.
Fascinating. Actually, we've noticed there's no litter on the streets.
Exactly, yes. I would say that's because, let's say, it's something that spreads from what they learn at school. Because, if you're the one cleaning the bathroom,
Of course.
then when it's your turn to use the bathroom, naturally you're going to be more careful because you cleaned it, you don't want to get it dirty, right?
Of course.
You treat it like your own bathroom at home. And when you go out on the street, people also end up treating the streets like their home. So what people usually do here is that when you buy people a Coke or I don't know, some chips or whatever, and you finish them, you put the bag in your pocket or your backpack or whatever, and you take it home and throw it away at home. That's right, there are no trash cans here at all.
You're responsible for your own trash. What I have seen is that when we do find trash cans, they're divided into two. One for things you can burn and another for things you can't burn.
Exactly, and that's another topic here, also a pretty big one, but it's about recycling. For example, at home, you have a pretty strict schedule for which day of the week you can throw out each type of trash because the garbage trucks come by every day. But depending on the neighborhood, for example, on Mondays, they only come to pick up paper, and on Tuesdays, they only come to pick up glass, for example, and things like that. So is each day of the week for a different item. And if you take out, for example, on paper day, you take out plastic, they fine you.
No way.
They don't take it, instead they leave it and fine you. So they're extremely strict. Actually, well, this has never happened to me, but I do have foreign friends too, who obviously at first don't know what day you have to throw out what thing. So, well, I take out my plastic and then the neighbor comes and knocks on my door and tells me before the truck comes.
Oh, how lovely.
Today is only paper. So yes, but it's actually something quite strict in a good way.
Of course, that's why everything looks so impeccable.
Of course, exactly.
And how is the relationship between the citizens and the police?
The citizens with the police, look,
I haven't seen many police officers.
you rarely see police officers, and in residential areas, they're usually on bicycles. Always extremely respectful, both the police officers and the citizens themselves. The police officers in the mornings, and because I'm someone who leaves home very early and in the mornings, the police officers are always the ones who watch over the crosswalks when the children are going to school, right? So you always see them there taking care of the children, making sure everyone crosses safely, being careful, keeping everything characteristically in order, right? A very typical Japanese order. But everything is always super calm. I've never seen at any time. I mean, you never hear about violence, for example, from the police or anything like that, right? Everything is very, like I said before, it's always like a big city that behaves like a small town, right? Where everyone knows each other.
We ran out of battery and took the opportunity to stop and eat and enjoy everything they brought us, which was delicious, but we got stuck in the middle of the idea. So I'm going to continue. I asked this question about the police because in Latin America, we have an image of authority, of superiors, where many times the treatment can even become violent.
Of course, no.
From the moment you enter the airport and are welcomed, you experience equal person-to-person treatment.
Yes, really, yes. Here, well, actually, for example, every day at 6 in the evening, both the police officers and the firefighters have a small ceremony where they close the doors of their offices, well, their stations. And so those are events that the kids always go to, right? Groups of kids often go there to watch the truck inspections, to check if the lights and sirens work, the lights, sounds, and everything. And the little kids always go at 6 to see the firefighters, to see the police when they close the doors, you know. Police officers always welcome them. They let them get in the cars, get on the fire trucks, put on the helmets, the hats. You always see that more than, let's say, this distance, whether it's out of fear, respect, or whatever. You see that firefighters, police officers, and children are all part of the same community, right? And the children are, well, they're there so that, let's say, the police officers, and the firefighters are there to protect them and take care of them.
What do you like most about Japan? What surprised you most?
Well, I think what I like the most and what has surprised me the most could be the same thing. And it's kind of the same thing. It's also the service, the dedication. I would say that historically, the Japanese have always had this tendency to turn basically any discipline, whether it's someone making ceramic cups or someone practicing archery, into an almost spiritual art, right? You see those things in all areas of life? They protect and take care of everything to try to maintain the refinement of everything. And you can see that both in cleanliness, as we just talked about, as well as in security, it's an extremely safe country. But for example, when you go to a Starbucks, often, well, when someone gets up from the table to go to the bathroom, they leave their phone on the table or their computer on the table to save their spot. Right? I save my spot with my computer, right?
Right, so
when they leave to use the bathroom or get another coffee and return, their computer and phone are still there. Nothing happens. The children, and you've already seen it, little kids, 4 or 5 years old, who take the train alone from one side of the city to the other without any problem. Nobody bothers them. In fact, if the child looks a little lost or something like that, someone will always come up and ask, "What's wrong? Can I help you?" And they take them to a police officer or someone in those positions. It's always that community attitude, like a small town. No matter the size of the city, everyone still feels like part of the same family.
Of course, and everyone does it well because they know it will benefit everyone.
Of course, and they know the effort too.
Community time.
Exactly, and they know the effort that comes with that too.
Of course.
How long does it take to clean a classroom?
That's why they don't want to make a mess.
Exactly. When you're on the street, at home, or taking the train or bus, you treat things with the same respect.
Yes.
With the same respect you expect when you're cleaning them, right?
Of course. Well, something funny happened to us in Okinawa. We asked a man if it was safe to leave our things on the beach, and he said, "I can assure you nothing will happen with the Japanese, but I can't vouch for visitors."
Exactly.
It's just that they're sure the Japanese won't do anything.
They're never going to do anything.
It left us very impressed.
And really, yes, there are people who, being here, they're extremely comfortable. You know, they're always at home and they know they're safe and nothing is ever going to happen.
What a relief. What a wonderful feeling.
Honestly, for me, well, as a foreigner coming here, that was something that obviously I welcomed with all the happiness in the world. But it did take me a bit to get used to the fact that I can leave my computer or I can, you know. If I leave my phone on the train, they're going to call me from the train station to tell me to come pick it up because they found it. Or if I forget my wallet in a restaurant, it's a story that has happened. Someone forgets their wallet in the restaurant and leaves. And 2 blocks later, the missionary is running after them to return the wallet. And those are things that at first, when they offer you so much service and so much help and so much, I was kind of suspicious, but what's going on? What do they really want, right?
And that's even though you come from Switzerland?
Yes, but even in Switzerland, let's say, that service culture isn't really part of it, right?
Well, actually, here they bow to you more often.
Yes, well, exactly. For everything, basically, right?
The food keeps coming, and well, what do you like least about Japan? Because not everything is perfect.
Of course, of course. What I like least about Japan, yes, I can easily say it's the work culture. The work culture, that's also something really famous, right? But the work culture is extremely strict. Fortunately, I'm not really part of that aspect of the culture because I have my own company here, right? But yes, I do know that obviously the work life here is extremely demanding to the point that, well, there's even a word to define suicide from overwork, right?
No, wow.
Work exhaustion, right? Yes, it literally means death from overwork, correct?
Wow.
And well, for that word to exist in the dictionary, obviously, right? And yes, it's something that really impacted me when I got here.
But does the excessive work come from choice or necessity?
No, neither of those. It comes from social pressure, right? Okay, because here, obviously, Japan is a hierarchical society, right?
Okay.
Japan has a hierarchical society, right? So there are, let's say, people who are lower in the hierarchy, and obviously those who are at the top. If you're in a company as an average level employee, obviously you'll have your superior, and he'll have his superior, and then the manager, the director, the president, and so on. And here, for example, it's customary that you don't leave the office until your superior leaves.
You don't leave.
You don't leave. That goes all the way to the top, right? If the president stays, the one below does too.
Very hierarchical.
Yes, and so obviously that affects even the lowest employee who in the end, after all, leaves at 2 in the morning, but their compensation for all that,
It's not the same.
it's worthless. Of course, and it's frowned upon. If you leave before your superior leaves, well, it's frowned upon. They'll say, well, maybe you're not, that your level of dedication to our company isn't ideal for us.
Wow.
So there's that social pressure. You don't see, well, when you see them on the train, you see the employees and they're completely destroyed.
Exactly. What do they do in their free time?
There's no free time since you get home at 2 a.m. and have to get up at 5 to return to work.
I mean, there are no days off.
No, and even during vacation, for example, work vacations, right? Some companies discourage taking them, even if your contract allows it. You have 5 vacations, 5 weeks of vacation a year. I'm not going to take them.
And on average, how long does a person work in their lifetime?
They work, well, if I'm not mistaken. The retirement age here is 65.
I guess retiring is frowned upon too.
But yes, exactly. So what often happens is that those older people start to get, let's say, demoted until they start giving them unimportant positions. You spend 10 hours a day at your desk doing nothing, but all of that is simply because it's frowned upon to retire. It's frowned upon. It's frowned upon if you're not dedicated to your work.
Wow.
No, and that's something that, well, let's say that's one of the main reasons why I mean, my wife and I decided, instead of working for another company, to create our own job here in Japan.
What can you tell us?
Of course.
What do you do for work?
Well, we came here to Japan to create our own music school here. We are both musicians, and well, it's a multilingual music school. In fact, we obviously have students who come from all over the world, many Japanese, of course, but we also have quite a few students from the international side of the market. Yeah, we've already been here for 5 years, and honestly, the school has grown quite well. We already have more than 70. We're almost at 80 students.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But really, I'm very grateful for all the opportunities we've been given here. And honestly, I've worked pretty hard.
But do you really get days off?
From time to time. I am working pretty much like the Japanese do, but yeah, I don't have to wait for anyone else to leave the company before I can go. I leave whenever I want.
Exactly. You decide. Okay, now for real. Now the last question, and we're done here eating all these delicious things. Is there gender equality in Japan?
No, honestly, I can tell you calmly, no. It's well known that yes, Japan has always been, besides being a very hierarchical society, also a very patriarchal society, right?
Oh, okay.
Well, although lately I would say that in the last 10 years, that has been changing quite a lot. The problem is that Japan, as I said before, because it's an island, all those changes that happen in other parts of the world take a little longer to get here to Japan. And Japanese people are also extremely attached to their customs and their way of doing things. And always, for thousands of years, it has been a culture where the man takes the superior position, and you can see that in everything. Even in food, for example, when they serve tea, there are men's cups and women's cups, which are actually a little smaller. Yes, and usually the same with chopsticks too. That's less common now, but in the past, women used slightly shorter chopsticks. Some might argue it's due to women having smaller hands and so on. But obviously, yes, that shows that, genders are not treated the same way. In the workplace too, obviously that's seen a lot. Again, nowadays a little less, but those differences are still quite noticeable. Let's hope that in the future that keeps changing a bit more towards something more harmonious.
But here the female figure is that mother figure who stays at home.
Generally, yes, generally. And you even see young girls nowadays who, for example, might go to college, but their goal is still, well, I'm going to get married and stay at home. Not all of them.
Of course, there are always exceptions.
That's true. It surprised me a bit because you see and hear it here more than in Europe or South America.
No doubt.
But there are always cultural differences.
That's why we make these videos. We love discovering them and seeing how different the world is.
Exactly.
That's how they are. So that's it. We're going to keep eating, and thank you for everything.
Thank you all. It's a pleasure.
For all the answers.
And let's eat.
And so, travelers, we conclude this video about life in Japan. For us, it's amazing to have the opportunity to travel to many countries around the world and learn a little more about the traditions, the work, and the general way people see life, and to be able to share it with you who are on the other side of the screen. Remember, you can go watch other videos like this to understand a bit more about what life is like in India, Denmark, Egypt, Spain, and several other countries that we have documented on our channel. If this is your first time, don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications by clicking the bell, and give us a thumbs up. And by the way, if you have any other questions, leave them in the comments and we'll be happy to answer them. See you in another video.